Hello and welcome back to another video. I'm Zelp and today we're going to look at some configuration stuff with the Railjack. Now these are things that I wish I knew before I started Railjack because I wasted some time and I've also wasted some plats on the Railjack, which I feel like I would not have done if I knew about these things. So hopefully it's going to help you. Now the first thing to point out is that when you are trying to customize your Railjack, not in terms of how it looks, but in terms of the array, the engine, the reactor, also when you're looking for guns to equip on and also mods to use, there are sort of like 3 variations and they are called, I actually don't know what category or I know the names of them, but I don't really know the background story for them, so I can't tell you that. But the first one is called Vidar, then you have Zeki, and then you have Levin. So this tree is like 3 different categories, and a lot of times you'll have certain things similar, but they are under these different categories. For example, if you look over here, we have the Cornic nozzle, and this is under Radar. It gives you an extra 8% increase in speed. And then this is a Cornic nozzle as well, but it's under 11 and it gives you a little bit more. And if you compare, this one can only be upgraded 1 more time, while this one can be upgraded 7 more times. So this is obviously the better one, right? But it also depends on if you have the capacity to use this, because otherwise sometimes the one that is lower is actually better. A lot of times, especially in the early games with the early avoinics that you get, you may start to compare and feel like Levin is the worst one to have, and then Vadar is the better one, and then Zeki is the best one. So that is how it would feel, but that is not always the case. So for example, if you look over here, the heatsink, is this a good example? There you go. So over here, we saw that Levin seems to be better in this case. But then when you come over here, you'll see that for heatsink, Vidar is better than Levin, because this one only gives you 20%, and this one gives you, let's see if we can rearrange it, okay, and this one gives you 28%. So originally it's higher, and this one can be upgraded 4 times, whilst this one cannot be upgraded. So in that sense, now this one is even better. But I do have to admit that a lot of times Zekti is the one with the most upgrades. So for example, if you were to look over here, all these mods that I have on with many upgrades, they are all Zektis. Another thing that I like to point out is that you can actually tell what type they are, what category they are, based on how it look. If it's a Zekti, you'll see that there is this rectangle blocks at the side of the frame. If it's Vadar, you'll see the triangles, and if it's Levin, you'll see 4 circles around it, right? And if there's nothing on it, it's most likely an ability. So the next thing is try to use the grid upgrade instead of the avoinics upgrade. The reason why is because when you use grid upgrades, it upgrades the slot, and then whatever you put in that slot is going to gain that upgrade. They are a lot more expensive, but especially if you're new, you don't know what exactly you want, and you don't know what exactly is going to work best for your build. So in my case, I find that I want to have damage because I don't want to be playing Railjack with my Arcwing. I want to be playing Railjack in my ship. So I had this maxed up, which is increase the turret damage by 121%. So that is a huge deal. And then we also reduce increase the heat capacity by 66%. So these are some of the things that I know from the start that I wanted. So I went and invested in it. However, for let's say this one, the Holt, I didn't know that there was a Zeki that is so much better, that gives you 506% back when I first started. So I actually upgraded some Vidars, which is and then after that I find that I have to sell them, and when you sell them, I don't think you get back 100%. You get back just a certain portion of how much is actually worth or how much you've invested in it. So that is something to pay attention to. Try and get the different variations and see which one is actually better before upgrading the Avoidance themselves. So instead, upgrade the grids first and get as many as you can. It's okay even if you have a lot of low level ones, just put it in. So let's talk about the arrays, the engine, and also the reactor. So the first thing that I did when I found out that there are actually 3 categories, which is the Vadar, the Zakti, and also the Levin, I assumed that Zakis are the best. So the moment I got a Zaki array and a Zaki reactor, I was like, oh, I got the best one, and I spent my plats to repair them. So these things, you can actually find it in missions. You can also find these guns in missions as well. They are known as wreckage. So they are like broken parts of guns and reactors. And if you want to use them, for example, over here I have actually 2 more. What you do is you click on it and then you repair. What I did was I purchased the repair drone, and that is really quick, because if you were to use repair on it, not only do you need all these materials, but you will also need to wait for it to be repaired, and I think that takes like 12 hours or something. So but with the repair drone, it's instant, and you don't have to waste all those materials. The drawback is that it costs 50 plats, and I've spent 150 on my Railjack for these 2, the array and also the reactor, and also one of the guns. I think it's this one, the MK3. So now I'm gonna share with you what I did wrong, or what I thought I did right was wrong. First of all, Zaki is not the best one. Okay, so if you come over here, you'll see that I got 2 more excuse me, losing my voice again. So I have 2 more Zakis. This one, if you look at the stats, it only gives you 175 shield capacity, regenerate delay being reduced by 3.4, which is pretty good. Then the shield generated only 2.2% per second, and then it gives the 10-0 on board Railjack gain 10% boost to shield. What else? If you look at the one that I'm using, is so much better. The shields are a lot more in comparison, right? 416. The shield regeneration delay is not as good. This one is more like 40% more, right? But then the shield regeneration per second is a lot better as well, 6%, whilst this one is only 2.2. And what it does is the same thing for the next stat. The thing is, not only does these stats change, but also the bottom part, the sort of like ability or extra perk also changes. So if you look at this particular Zaki, the thing that really catch my eye is the last perk. It says Railjack damage increased by 25% when shields are depleted. So your guns and everything is gonna do a lot more damage, which is a huge deal for my kind of build, where I want to go for damage so they don't have to go out for arc-wing fights. So I wanted this so much badlier than this one. However, I kept this for comparison. There's another thing that you need to know, which also I did not know, is that there is a cap on how many wreckage you can keep. So over here I have already 2 wreckage that is not built, and I'm keeping it. The total, if I'm not mistaken, is 30. So the moment you have 30, like this one, 1, 2, if I were to count them all, I guess 3, 4, 5. Okay, this one doesn't have. Oh, there's a lot here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All these are considered wreckage as long as they're not built. And you can only have 30. And I didn't know that. So at one point I actually overplayed. And even though I'm getting parts, getting wreckage, I could not store them. So what happens is that they will automatically be sold. Good thing is you do get some points back. You get it in terms of Derek, which is like a point that you use to upgrade your avoidance. But still, there might be something really, really good there, and I lost it because I didn't know that there was a cap. So yeah, now that you know, what you want to do is you pick the one that you don't want. You keep one that is better than your existing, and it's better than all the rest. And what I'll do is I will sell them, right? Sell them for scrap, get the Derek, and then I keep the one that I want to replace. The original one cannot be sold, cannot be sold. So you're going to have to keep those as well. Now I want to show you a big difference. So all this time we've been talking like Zeki is almost like the best, but this is a really good way of showing how Zeki might not be the best. The one that I have on has a increased avoidance capacity by 36. This one 23, which is even worse, although they are both Zekis. And then we come to the Radar Reactor. It gives you 73 capacity, which is like double this one. It's so much more, and I want it so badly because if you look over here, my avoidance capacity is over. It's almost gone. There is a bug going on where you can't see the avoidance that I put on. I think all you have to do is just like switch around the pages, and sometime it comes back. There you go, and then it comes back. All right, just in case you see and oh, your mods are gone, just play around with the buttons. Okay, so now back to the reactor. So obviously this seems to be better, although there are some downfalls like the flux capacity is reduced. This one has 260, which is I think the highest among the rest, whereas this one only gives you 80. But it's debatable if you want to go for the flux capacity that much, because for flux capacity you can recharge them. If you go all the way to the the forge, you can actually build them up. As you use them, you get someone to recharge them, so in game it's actually not that bad. However, for the avoidance, you can't really put in avoidance in game or anything like that, so I feel like this one is actually the better one. And some part of me wants to keep farming like for an entire month and then compare what is the best one and then decide what to keep and what to upgrade. The reason why is because the cost of repair is just way too much. So the cost of repair is kind of high in my opinion, but then again, this is a long-term game. I don't think DE wants us to be maxing out everything in just like a few days. So although it's high, I feel like it needs to be high. So for some kind of comparison, if this helps, is that I've been playing for almost every day in the last week since it came out, and I don't even have enough titanium to be repairing this particular thing. Okay, now let's take a look at the amendments, which is your guns. This is the front, the pilot gun. This is the sight guns. In my opinion, sight guns are actually better. Now, it's not that the guns itself is better, it's just that people who use the sight guns has more perks. If you have some points in your gunnery, you have a 360-degree view, and you don't really have to worry too much about flying the thing. All you have to do is just aim and shoot. So you have better view, and you don't have to worry about an extra thing. So in my opinion, to do damage wise, I feel like this is way better. The sight guns, they have more control. If an enemy fly past you, for a pilot to shoot them, he has to turn the entire ship around in order to shoot him, whereas the people at the sight guns don't have to do that. So for the pilot seat, I feel like the kind of guns that it needs to use should not be a type of gun that requires tracking. The idea, or rather the gun that I kind of want to go for, the front gun, is actually a cryo gun where it freezes, and it also does a lot of damage, but you only can shoot a few shots at a time. And the sight one, I'm thinking of going something for more DPS, where tracking is required. And then finally we have your sort of like alternate gun or alternate fire. In this case, I haven't upgraded it, it's still the same thing. I feel like I cannot seem to find this alternate gun in missions. So I've been through so many Railjack missions, but I couldn't seem to find any. So you might actually have to use the research lab to purchase the one that you want. And these are the alternate guns over this one and this one. I haven't tried them, so I cannot really talk too much about them. But as you can see, you actually can get a higher MK level for these guns. And there's one thing that I like to point out is that originally when I came over here, there wasn't that many guns that was researched. So I actually assumed that in the research lab there's only so few, but turns out the more you research, the more you actually have. So originally, like, you only have the MK1s, but when that is done you can research the MK2 kind of thing, and so now we actually have a lot more guns, and I don't know how far you can actually go. Will we get MK3 from research labs? I don't know. Now, another thing that is very important that I did not know for the longest time, even after I know about the rarities, the different categories, and the stats here that changes. The last thing that I found out that I felt was also kind of late was that even the guns has different rarities or variations, just like sort of like ribbons, right? If you want to. The problem is, and the reason why it took me so long, is because in order to see the stats you have to press tab, and when you press tab you'll see the stats, and you'll see at the first line that's the perk that comes with this particular gun. So in this case you can see fire rate plus 33.3%. I have one identical, it's the exact same gun next to it. It's also MK3, and if you look at the stats, everything's the same, but the first line is different. This one gives you a 51% fire rate, so it's a lot better. Now, my advice to you when picking the gun, of course, when you sell them, you have to pick whatever that you think that is the best, and then you keep them and you scrap those that you don't want. The second thing that I want to point out is that you should definitely try out the low level guns, right? Get those variations, or even if you don't want to get your own, just to try, you can go on missions with other people where they have different guns and try those guns and see how it feels before dedicating to a certain gun. Because in my opinion, the one that I got, which is the Pulsar, which is kind of like electric shocks shooting out, it doesn't have that even though it's kind of strong. It just doesn't feel fun, and I don't really like it. Like, for me, I would rather go for a Carcinok because it feels so much better. Now, next thing you want to know is that different categories also have different stats. So let's say this one is 11, this one is a Vidar, and they are both MK3s. But if you look just at the stats, don't look at the first line because that one keeps changing. You'll see that, well, in this case, so the status, this one Vidar is not so good, 11 is better status, but not so good critical, and Vidar has better critical. Let's see if I have a Pulsar for Zeki. Then we can do another. There you go, I do have one. So for this one, you'll realize that critical is not as good, status is good. What else? The heat acceleration is a lot, so it overheats really quickly. But the damage on this thing is way higher, right? So those are the differences. And it varies between guns because pulsars are sort of like laser guns, so the accuracy doesn't change. But if you look at some other gun, the accuracy actually do change. So to me, I don't plan on getting more than one of the same type of gun. Yes, you can have a same gun for the front and also the side guns, but in my opinion, since they do different type of damage type, if you look over here, this one is plasma and chemical. If you look at this one is particle plasma. If you look at the pulsar, it's plasma ionic. So I feel like it's a good idea to have some variation in case if you come across a bunch of enemies that is, let's say, not weak against ionic, then your pulsar is going to do so much lesser damage. So in those sense, I prefer having a variation, so I'll keep one of the best, the same way that I did with the engine, same way I did with the reactor and the array. Okay, so I think that is pretty much it that I want to talk about. If you do plan on using your plat, spend it wisely. So with that, I'm going to end this here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys. Oh wait, there's one more thing that I want to point out. Under intrinsics, under tactical, a few of you guys actually told me down in the comments that what the rank 10 actually does is not that it moves the ship to the crew member, it actually moves you from the ship, if you are on the ship, to the crew member. And then when I read it over again a few times, I feel like, yeah, that is actually what it meant. Warp from ship to crew member. So warp you from ship to crew member, not warp ship to crew member. I don't know why I read it that way the first time, and it kind of stuck in my head that way until you guys pointed it out. And also I want to thank those that actually tell me about it. You guys are very gentle. That's pretty much it I want to say for today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. If you have any tips, tricks, whatever that you feel like is related to this or today's topic, let me know down in the comments. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.